So, what's up, ladies and gents? Time for your second video of the day. So, today's video is going to be quite an interesting one because today's quite a special day, really, because today marks 2 years to the day that we bid farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. Obviously, her death was announced 2 years ago today. It was around this time as well, I think, that she actually passed away as well. So, yeah, it's crazy to think about, isn't it, really? I remember that day well because I was at college that day. And it was lunch, I was on my lunch break, and I was flicking through the news. And I saw the report saying that the Queen's health had taken a turn for the worse, and that the family had been asked to obviously travel to Balmoral. And to be fairly honest with you, I was not immediately convinced that the situation was as serious as it was. I thought it was a situation that was being somewhat exaggerated in the grand scheme of things. I didn't think that things were as bad as they were. Obviously it wasn't until, obviously, but it was like, I thought that maybe the news reporters and everything were kind of exaggerating the situation and making things out to be worse than what they actually were, as obviously sometimes news reporters tend to do that. But then I thought to myself, well, why would they exaggerate a situation like this? Because this is not the sort of it was not the sort of situation where they should be exaggerating things. So I thought maybe there was some truth to it, but I still didn't know what was what. And I felt, obviously, when I came out of college at the end of the day, I called my mum to let her know that I was on my way back. And on my way back, she asked me if I'd seen the news, and I was like, yeah, I've seen it. And we, obviously, when I got back, we was watching the news, and we noticed that all of the news reporters were wearing black. And one of them was there was a news reporter interviewing Keir Starmer, and someone said something to him. And he went off and he came back and he was wearing a black tie. And obviously my mum mentioned that before that they've been putting the barriers outside at Balmoral as well. So the Queen had obviously passed away then. Obviously there's no denying the impact that the Queen's death had, because it was a huge event for all of us here in the UK, because it was like the only reigning monarch, most of us had known in our lifetimes. A lot of us, it would be, it was the only reigning monarch. It was the only reigning. She was the only reigning monarch that we young people knew. She was the only reigning monarch that our parents knew. As a lot of our parents wouldn't have even been, wouldn't have been born around the time that that the Queen's father was the King of England. So yeah. I think, when I think back to the Queen's death, I think one of the things that always resonates with me so much about it, and I always remember so much about it, was, sadly, was the fact that some people on social media were being downright vile, and some of the things that some people were saying was just absolutely vile. It was just disgusting. Some of the things that people were saying, dinged on the pedo supporters dead and things like that. I'm not going to sit here listing all the things that people were saying, because I don't think it's important to list those things. But some of the things that people were saying on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook at the time was just absolutely disgusting. People, and as I was saying, people didn't seem to care about the fact that they were disrespecting and, being downright vile about someone's mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. It's like they wouldn't be speaking about their family members the way that they were speaking about the Queen. Like, it was just awful seeing some of the things that people were saying. And at a time where people were even, trying to kind of process everything that had happened and trying to take the news in. people weren't really in the mood for those, for idiots posting downright, comments that were downright vile. There was no need for that at the time. There was no need for people to be on Twitter and, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, being downright vile. But sadly, that's what some people were doing. I remember when I went into college the next day, it didn't really, obviously we were all really talking about the Queen, and it was normally we talk about other stuff like football and things like that. But on that Friday morning, it didn't really feel like it was appropriate to really talk about anything else, given the circumstances, obviously, of what had happened the previous day. And the fact that, what had happened the previous day was so enormous and was so huge. And it was a big moment kind of in history, and it was a big moment for a lot of us young people, because it was like, she was the only reigning monarch that a lot of us young people had actually known. So, I think that's why it had that more of an impact for us, for us young people than it did, for our grandparents, because a lot of our grandparents, great-grandparents, most of them would have been around, at the time that the Queen's father was reigning, so she wasn't the only reigning monarch that they knew, but for a lot of us and most of our parents, she was the only reigning monarch that we'd known, obviously, I remember a lot of the time, people were posting downright violent comments, and I was responding to people, and I was saying, this is someone's mother, grandmother and great grandmother that you're talking about, and have some respect. And people were like, so what, who cares? They didn't care about the fact that they would, there were some people who genuinely did not care about the fact that they were disrespecting somebody's mother, grandmother, great grandmother. It was disgusting, some of the things that people were saying about the Queen, and it made me very sad that at a time where people were supposed to be showing their respect, that they're supposed to be paying their respects, and, just generally being respectful, people were choosing to instead be downright vile, and felt the need to make their opinions of the Queen known on social media at a time that it just wasn't appropriate. It just wasn't appropriate for them to make their feelings known at a time where a lot of people were so distraught and so devastated and heartbroken by the news that she'd passed away, and people were still trying to come to terms with that. And it, obviously, and it didn't help that obviously you had people coming on social media basically every day being downright vile, saying things that were absolutely unacceptable, at the time, and people were just being downright rude. It did make me angry, because I was thinking to myself, how can people just be so rude? How can people be so vile? There was absolutely no need for that. It was just horrible, The one thing I've always said about Queen Elizabeth II is she served, the country 70 years. She served with grace, pride, dignity. She had respect, she always had so much respect for people. I do think that the Queen definitely wasn't her usual self after Prince Philip obviously passed away the year before, in 2021. I think, she really went downhill after that, because Elizabeth and Philip had been together for so long. It was like, she'd lost a big part of her life, she'd lost someone that had been a part of her life for so many years. So it was always going to have an impact on her in some way. And it did have a pretty substantial impact on her, suffice to say. When I look back at it now, I just wish that people had been more respectful and hadn't been so rude, and hadn't been saying things that was so viral, because it wasn't a time for people. It wasn't the right time for people to be being so viral, and for people to be being so rude. It was just unacceptable. Like some of the things that people were saying, and it really just made people like seeing some of the things that people were saying on social media. It just made others feel 10 times worse. It didn't make people feel any better. It made people feel 10 times worse. Because, obviously, the news was a lot to take in, and people were finding it hard. And it was, and it was, it didn't help. Obviously, as I said, it didn't help the fact that you had so many morons, who were really showing their true colours. That, around that time with some of the things they were saying on social media, it really did show you just how vile and how nasty and horrible some people were. The fact that they were slagging off someone's mother and great grandmother, and didn't care at all about that. They didn't care at all about the fact that they were talking about someone's mother and grandmother, great grandmother. It was just horrendous. And it made me angry, and I know it made a lot of people angry, seeing what people were saying about the Queen. Like I sit here now and I just think to myself, wow, it's been 2 years. Like, since he's passed away. I can't believe it's been that long already. Like, to me, it just doesn't really feel like it's been that long. It doesn't feel like it's been 2 years since Queen Elizabeth II obviously passed away. 2022 was a very, interesting year as a whole, obviously. We had obviously England women winning the Euros that summer, which was a huge event. Everyone was talking about that, everyone was buzzing, because England women had basically won England's first international trophy since 1966. They'd done something that the men, as of now, as of now, are still unable to do, and they've still not been able to actually win a major trophy. They came close, at this summer in the Euros, but again, lost in the final. And then obviously we had the Platinum Jubilee, and then just a couple of months after the Platinum Jubilee, the Queen passed away. But I remember my mum was saying at the time, she kept saying that she thought that the Queen would get the Platinum Jubilee out of the way and then she would go, and that's exactly what happened. She got the Platinum Jubilee out of the way, and then that was it, she went. It just felt like that Christmas. I remember it felt so weird not seeing her do the Queen's speech. And that was obviously a yearly tradition. Every Christmas she had the Queen's speech, and it was so weird seeing her not do it that year. The Queen Elizabeth II. She's somebody who will never, a lovely woman who will never be forgotten. She will always be so fondly remembered, and she never will be forgotten. Her memory will always live on. I hope wherever she's up there with Philip, for sure. Obviously my thoughts, obviously go out to the members of the royal family today. Obviously it's probably a difficult time, they probably find it difficult today knowing that it's been 2 years since Her Majesty the Queen passed away. It's crazy to think about, isn't it, really, when you think about it, like, 2 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. It feels like it's only really been about a year or so, but it's been 2 years. But it's probably been one of those bigger moments of the last, like, 20 odd years, I'd say. I don't think there's been a bigger moment than that's really happened in the last sort of 20 odd years. it was just an enormous thing. It was like a huge deal. But as I said, I really wasn't impressed by how vile and how rude and nasty people were being on social media at the time, on Facebook, YouTube, and and Twitter and everything. It's like you couldn't get away from these nasty bigots who were posting nasty, horrible comments online. Because they were posting, as people were posting nasty, horrible comments and vile comments on practically every social media platform at the time. On every video related to the Queen's death, there was always loads of horrible comments from nasty, horrible individuals. You had more people paying respects, but obviously you had loads of people paying respects, but you just had it was like every video there was these nasty, horrible individuals saying such disgusting, vile, horrible things about somebody's mother, grandmother, great grandmother. It's like it just doesn't bear thinking about the fact that people would be so vile. But as I said, earlier as I said a little bit earlier in the video, some people that day, a lot of people that day, and in the days after she passed away, were really showing their true colours, and were really showing just how vile and rude and nasty they could be. And there's no other words to describe that, it doesn't bear thinking about, does it? Thinking about how rude people could be, were being at the time. But obviously, I hope you enjoyed this video of me paying tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. It's the second anniversary of her tragic and devastating passing on the 8th of September 2022. So God bless Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you for another one very soon. Bye bye.